Hello Summoners, and welcome back to another episode of ProGuides Best Champion of Main, now on patch 12.6. The champions that we pick for this series are strong picks with high performance but have low ban rates and are unlikely to get nerfed anytime soon. They are reliable picks for climbing and are worth investing your time in. We also have a series that covers the most broken contested picks in each role, so be sure that you're subbed to the channel so you don't miss out when we post those as well. We'll be starting things out in the top lane by talking about Kayle. She's been performing so well lately that she got promoted to our OP tier on this patch, yet she still remains a low enough pick rate and ban rate that you can easily make her your main. The only reason that I could think of for the reason that she's not more popular is her weak early game. Maybe people would rather play something with a bit more interaction or skill expression, but personally, I like winning more than showing off. That said, you do have to play around that weak early game pretty well if you want to scale. The first 5 levels are definitely the hardest and not very fun. Since you don't have access to your range autos until level 6, it's key that you play for XP, not necessarily last hits. If the farm is free, take it, but don't move up and take dumb amounts of damage for it. And try not to throw out your Qs to get last hits, since that can shove in the wave towards your opponent. If you're tired of being stuck in your current elo, the first step to climbing is fixing your champion pool. That's why we make these videos, so you can get the right champion or champions for you. After you decide on what you're going to play, then you have to learn how to play correctly. It can take many games to learn a new champion, but you don't have to spend days nor weeks doing it alone. Our top tier coaches over at ProGuides.com can help you figure out exactly what you need to work on. They're available 24/7, so it's never really a bad time to come try one out. I promise. There's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why wouldn't you want to steal all their solo queue tips and tricks? Find links down to our website in the description box below. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Another heavily slept on pick that also makes our OP tier is TAHM KENCH. But unlike Kayle, TAHM was a pretty popular pick not too long ago, being one of the most picked and banned champions in the role. But for one reason or another, he fell off in terms of how often you see him. Either way, he's still a really good pick that does a great job of shutting down bruisers. He also has a really low skill floor, so pretty much anybody can pick him up and play him. You don't have to worry about needing good mechanics and actually outplaying your opponent. You'll pretty much just right click them and just spam Q off cooldown. Our final top laner is URGOT. When you first start learning URGOT, he feels like an incredibly clunky, even awkward to use champion, but once you get the hang of things, it's really not that bad. The biggest trick for URGOT is learning to toggle his W for optimal damage output. This is something that you can only do once you hit level 9 since it requires W to be at max rank. To do this little trick, you activate W, let it tick for 3 hits, then turn it off and get in a normal auto attack. Then rinse and repeat, getting in 3 more ticks, an auto attack, and so on. This isn't too hard to do at all, but it's a habit that you have to work towards forming, so try to constantly keep it in mind when playing him. Trust me, it's worth it once you see the difference in how much more damage you'll be pumping out. Taking a look now at the jungle, we'll lead off with KINDRED. KINDRED is definitely one of the more skill-expressive champions, making her a more high-risk, high-reward. But if you know how to path and get your marks, you'll find out that she's one of the best hard carry junglers in the game. She's almost as good of a hyper carry as Jinx, but what she lacks in a bit of damage, she can make up for a ton of mobility. The one thing that I'll say is that there's one matchup that feels borderline unplayable. You'll absolutely want to ban Kha'Zix if you decide to play KINDRED. He's good at bullying you at all stages of the game. Our second jungler is NUNU. I can't really remember a point in time where NUNU wasn't somewhere between the S and OP tiers. He's just a really good pick. I mean, when Riot nerfed him back on 12.4, it was such a microscopic change that his win rate barely even budged by a fraction of a percent. NUNU really provides everything that you want in a jungler. He has good ganks, amazing objective control, and since he's a tank, he slots nicely into any team comp. And to top things off, he's super easy to play. Just roll at the enemy team and be as disruptive as possible to their backline while your team does all the damage. Our last jungler for today is Rammus. While their kits don't seem anything alike, Rammus is really similar to Skarner in the sense that he can win games purely off his pick potential. But unlike Skarner, Rammus is nearly impossible to peel. His powerball into ult combo can just jump over the enemy frontline, giving you direct access to the enemy ADC. Then all you have to do is taunt the ADC, activate your W, and watch as they melt their own health bar. Now for the mid lane, we'll start off with Talon. While there are several strong lane bullies, none of them are as good as Talon at leveraging their lead to affect the rest of the map early. It's because other champions can't parkour across the map to help their jungler or gank other lanes like Talon. My personal favorite thing to do is invade the enemy jungler when they have their buff after it respawns. Most junglers won't have their ults at this point in the game, but you should. This makes it a very one-sided fight that usually results in you one-shotting them and securing the buff for yourself. Just be careful if they smite it, because they'll get a ton of HP back. One thing to note is the build choice. We decided to give you the one-shot focus lethality builds with Electrocute, but if the enemy team calls for it, you could definitely go for Conqueror or Gore Drinker instead. Our second mid laner is another assassin in FIZZ. FIZZ doesn't really come online quite as early as Talon does, but once you get rolling with him, he's a lot harder to stop. The thing about FIZZ is that his potential kill range is basically halfway across the screen. Even without having any items completed, getting hit by a max range ultimate is basically guaranteed death for any squishy opponent. and later on in the game, his ultimate is only really needed when dealing with tankier targets. All you need is Ludens, Sorcerer's Shoes, and Lichbane, and FIZZ has enough damage to one-shot squishier foes with his basic abilities and Ignite. Personally, I'm pretty happy that FIZZ isn't more popular of a pick in the current meta. I absolutely hate playing against him, and I'm pretty sure that nobody does. It just feels like there isn't much counterplay to him one-shotting, and it's more of a matter of hoping that you outcomp him more than anything else. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What champion do you find the most frustrating to play against? I honestly have so many, so I won't even get started, but let me know your answers in the comments down below. Now let's get back on topic. Our third mid laner for this patch is Anivia. She's pretty much the polar opposite of our last two picks. Rather than an assassin that wants to snowball early and win games fast, with Anivia, you want to take things a lot slower, more of a measured approach. In the very early stages of the game, you want to focus on good wave management. Anivia, ironically, can't really break freezes that well because she has her ultimate, so if the wave ends up in a bad spot, you're susceptible to being ganked. And once you do have your ultimate, that all goes out the window. You can use it on every wave to instantly shove in the wave and let the lane return to a neutral state over and over again. Moving things down to the bot lane, the first pick that we have for you is SERAPHINE. Despite Riot's best effort to make her a support, she's way better as a bot lane carry. She really needs the income to be useful. There are tons of other ways that you can build SERAPHINE, but it all depends on your preference and playstyle. The build that we gave you here is a well-rounded mix of damage and ability haste, but there's a couple of other options. If you want more utility, grab Lucidity Boots over Sorcerer's Shoes, replace Cosmic Drive with Rallies, and then turn that Void Staff into a buffing item like Ardent or Staff of Flowing Water. If you want her to do a lot of damage, then definitely utilize that passive. For that build, grab Ludens over Liandry's and Lichbane over Cosmic Drive. Our second pick is yet another non-marksman in HEIMERDINGER. Picking HEIMERDINGER is basically a guaranteed way to auto-win any bot lane 2v2. His turrets give more pushing power than any regular ult ADC. Once enemy bot lane is under their tower, they have to put up with their constant W spam and eventually they're forced to back. Usually, the response to oppressive poke is to force an all-in, but the current bot lane meta is almost entirely dominated by ADCs that aren't great at that, as well as enchanters and other range supports. And even when you do end up against all-in enemy bot laners, their all-in attempts are usually shut down by your E. They just end up being stunned and nuked by your turret lasers while you waddle back to safety. Rounding out our bot lane carries, we have the traditional marksman in Kog'Maw. While he's definitely overshadowed in terms of popularity by Jinx, Vayne, and Twitch, Kog is doing just about as well as them when he does get picked. His biggest weakness is the lack of mobility, but that's something that is easily made up for by having good wave management. Never overextending means never ending up in a spot where the enemy team can force anything on you. In teamfights, you just really need to be aware of where the big threats are, whether that's an assassin or a flank engage from somebody like Malphite. Don't be afraid to hang back and wait out a cooldown or two before moving up. You want to make sure that you're able to attack the entire time that your W is up, or you're missing out on a lot of DPS potential. To round out our list, we have our support, starting off with Zyra. If you're the type of player that basically just wants to be a carry that doesn't farm, she's the pick for you. The only thing supporty about Zyra is the fact that she auto-wins the lane for whoever her ADC is. Other than that, she's just a huge damage threat for your team. She provides tons of poke and pushing power, making her an incredibly oppressive laner. But she's not just limited to a siege style of gameplay. Zyra is also a super deadly champion when it comes to all-ins, with her full combo becoming enough to almost one-shot any squishy targets, and her high DPS of her plants helping her to finish the job if the foes keep fighting near them. Our second support is basically the opposite of Zyra. While Zyra is a super aggressive laner that can pretty much 1v2 the enemy bot lane, your only goal with Sona early on is just to survive. She provides a bit of poke and some sustain, but that's about it. But her lack of real early presence is super worth it, because when it comes down to team fight, Sona is arguably the best support in the game. The constant spam of Q and W deals and mitigates a lot of damage over the course of an extended team fight respectively. Also, her W power chord is a disgustingly strong yet underrated tool. It's able to shut down enemy assassins and other divers, so make sure you're trying to actively land it on them in fights. Finishing off our list, we have Bard. Bard is a wildcard support that either hard carries or hard anchors depending on who plays him. His unique kit gives him more of a playmaking potential than any other support. You can portal in junglers for ganks that would otherwise be impossible, or disable turrets to make a dive as easy as you can with his ultimate. His playstyle is super flexible, with the option of winning lane, playing defensively, or just roaming and affecting the rest of the map. Try him out and see what works best for you. And that's it for our top 3 champions to main on patch 12.6. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides, and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know what champion you find the most frustrating to play against in the comments down below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.